Hey everybody, it's Wednesday. We're halfway through the week. Hey, I want us to talk a little bit about connection today. We are coming out of COVID and desperate for connection and looking for those coffee shop conversations and those dinner out kind of times. And so I want us to talk about connection. Brene Brown defines connection in a very specific way. She says that connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. That's the first part of that definition. The second part of that definition is when they give and receive without judgment. And then the third part of that definition is when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. That's what she calls connection. Now, if you didn't already know this, you begin to be clear on the fact that we need connection through COVID. We started seeing that disconnection and how desperate we were for connection. You've probably heard lots of great stories about ways we learned to create connection, to find connection in the middle of some social distancing and COVID restrictions. But there's a story about Captain Michael Reed Jr. who came back from a 9-month deployment from Afghanistan. His father was in a nursing home, but he wanted first thing to go see his father. So they made arrangements for that to work. He couldn't go in the room and be with him, so he sat outside his window. His dad was inside, the window was closed, he was outside, and they were on their phone FaceTiming each other. So they could see and hear each other, but he was present also in the mix with a barrier, but present. They were desperate for that kind of connection, and what they gained from that was sustenance and strength. They walked away from that conversation with that that thing that had been missing for 9 months, that connection. We were probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks into the beginning of COVID when my dad turned 80. And so we set up 3 Zoom calls on his 80th birthday and gathered a handful of people on each call for them to just tell him how much they loved him. By the end of the day, he'd seen and heard from 80 people on Zoom. And what they did was they told him how he'd impacted their life, how valuable he was to him. They told him how much they loved him. And so what he experienced was this idea of being seen, heard, and valued. So we did it in different ways during COVID, but we found ways to connect. And neuroscience is telling us now that the connectedness we experience in a relationship impacts our brains. It literally impacts how our brains develop and how they perform. Go find that research because it's fascinating. So our innate need for connection makes the consequences of disconnection very dangerous. And we've seen that through COVID, how this disconnection has impacted our mental health and how much we've suffered from that. Now, in our culture, we have a couple of barriers in our way when it comes to connection. The first one is sometimes we feel connected, but we're not connected in this technology way. Online, we feel connected, but aren't connected. In social media in particular, it's kind of an imposter connection. It makes us believe we're connected when we're really not. We're confused that being communicative is connection, but that's not connection. Let's go back and look at that definition. Feeling seen, heard, and valued in a place where we can give and receive without judgment and where we walk away feeling strength and sustenance from the relationship. So you can see how we're not getting that on social media. And then the other way in our culture that tends to be a barrier for us is this idea that we need to be self-sufficient. This culture that puts a real value and importance on get it done alone, going it alone. Let me forge my own path kind of thing. It equates to I'm successful when I make it happen for myself. I don't need anyone else. So we're often willing to give a helping hand to someone, but we're not willing to reach out and grab a helping hand or ask for a helping hand because of the culture valuing this independence. So we think there are two kinds of people, those who need help and those that give help, but really we're both. We're all just both. We need help and we give help. Brene Brown says, until we can receive with an open heart, we're never really giving with an open heart. So when we attach judgment to receiving help, then we're knowingly or unknowingly attaching it to giving help. So those two things, technology and this self-sufficiency, get in the way of connection. And now we're in this place of re-entering, this place of coming back to in-person gatherings. So we have that new opportunity, a new opportunity to be deliberate about our connections. Connections that make us feel seen, heard, and valued, where we can give and receive without judgment, and where we walk away with strength and new sustenance from that relationship. If that's what you really want in your connections, man, be deliberate as we re-enter after this COVID season. As we re-enter, pay attention to how you're building connections. I'm Michelle Gooch with Life by Design. You can find me at www.lifebydesign.guru, lifebydesign.guru. And you can find me here on Facebook Wednesdays at 1. So I'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great week.